Most people don't lose their horse, they lose the ability to save it. Hi, I'm Veronica Weitzel, and this is Saddle Stock and Legacy. At Saddle Stock and Legacy, we value people's relationship with their horse above all else. Most people don't have insurance on their horse. Actually, the real numbers for 2026 is 80% of horse owners do not have their horse insured. And that's way, way, way too many, because our entire industry, whether you're showing, you're trail riding, you're just enjoying your experience and your time with that animal, it's an investment. No matter how you look at it, whether it's a $1,500 pony that you bought at the sale barn, or you went and paid $85,000 or above for that really spectacular bridle horse that you're gonna go show, run down the fence, and do all the cool things. So my biggest thing when people ask me, how do I insure my horse? How do I afford it? Is I always say, hey, have you gotten a quote? Have you gotten a quote from 3 different agents? Most of the time, agencies is who all these independents work for. They sell the same products, but the difference is how knowledgeable the agent is in the horse industry, and how well and how much that company that produces that policy and is the one that insures your horse, how much they know and how in depth they have been in the industry. There's a lot of cattle companies and farm and ranch companies that do have mortality insurance, and they kind of tack it on to a ranch policy or something like that, and they want to cover them like they're livestock. Horses are not livestock. They're actually not even in the livestock category. Are not treated like show cattle or show hogs. They are not consumed in this country. It's very different. So they don't have that secondary value of being consumed and having that meat market, for the lack of better terms, right? No one ever wants to think of it that way, but that's the world we live in. So when it comes to show horses and trail horses and all of the above, if you don't know what you don't know. So my suggestion is, if you think it's really expensive, it may not be. That's just the name of the game of, we buy a truck, we buy a trailer to haul these horses down the road. We insure the truck, we insure the trailer for the most part. Most of us do, right? So why are we not insuring the horse? That should be a staple of every single person who can't replace those dollars that they purchase that horse with out of their pocket every single day, and they're never going to miss it. And even if you would not miss it, that's just protecting your investment, no different than your house, truck, and trailer. So when you purchase a mortality policy from most, I'm not saying all, but from most companies, they more or less will probably have an emergency colic coverage added to that mortality policy. Now, that's not a medical policy. That's not a quote unquote health insurance policy, we'll call it today. That's just hey, my horse is colicking. He needs to have surgery to save his life. This will help pay for it. Now, at Saddle Stock Legacy, we do sell policies that include, within the mortality includes the emergency colic surgery coverage, the ECS. What that does is that only pays for the surgery and your aftercare days after the surgery. So our policy will cover up to $5,000, depending on your horse's value. It could cover up to 50% of the surgery costs or 15 days of aftercare, whichever is less. In the event of a colic claim, this ECS additional endorsement on your mortality policy will be used first, and then any medical or other surgical policy endorsements will kick in if those endorsements were added to that mortality policy. So here's what that means. If your horse colics, you have to take it to the university, you have to take it to the clinic, whatever that may be. Your policy is going to have up to $5,000 of reimbursement for that procedure. And that's going to cover your colic surgery and your anesthesia. Your horse has to be under anesthesia in order for this part of the policy to kick in. If it's just treatment and there's no surgery, this does not cover that. But we have other options that will cover that. So what I've pulled today, and if you're seeing this on a YouTube or a social media platform, you'll be able to see some of the slides for just kind of the way I did this. you'll be able to see actual costs and kind of what's covered, could be covered, because this whole deal right here that I'm showing you, these actual real numbers, these numbers were pulled in March of 2026 from local Midwest universities, which is usually who people around the Midwest have to use for colic surgery and things of that nature. And these are numbers from my actual personal policy that I have on one of my cow horses, one of my show horses. So these are real numbers. Now, you could have numbers, vet bills that are more or less, or just depends, but this is just for my area, in the Midwest. So we'll go off of that. So this is all one bill, all 3 slides. It's all one bill, but I've divided it down on where it would be covered within what I have in my policy. I have a couple of endorsements, which are additional type riders on my policy. So I have the mortality policy. My horse is valued over $20,000, which makes other options available to me. So that will kind of tell me what my medical policy options are going to be, and then what that policy is going to pay. So the emergency colic surgery endorsement, if you're seeing, we're going to call this slide number 1, the ECS endorsement, you're going to see a surgery cost of $7,500. You're going to see anesthesia for $1,800, a recovery stall for $450, and hospitalization, which equals out to 5 days, for $2,500. Now, on our policies, we cover aftercare costs could be covered up to 50% of the surgery costs, or 15 days of aftercare, whichever is less. So pretty much that $2,500 is 50% of the $5,000 max that I'm going to get for my emergency covered colic surgery coverage. Because if your horse is valued at $5,000 or under, you're only going to receive $2,500 of colic surgery coverage, which means you're going to receive 50% of that coverage for your aftercare, whichever is less. Very seldom do we have horses that are purchased in today's world, even just backyard pony trail horses, for under $5,000. 20 years ago, that was a different story. So we're going to, depending on the horse's value, that $5,000, that $2,500, the 50% throughout that policy. So our total surgery costs is going to cost, and this is just for the surgery in general, our total costs are $12,250. We're going to have $7,500 of that reimbursable coverage to us from our insurance policy company. So that leaves us with, if we only bought the mortality that has the emergency colic surgery added to it, that means we're going to have $4,750 out of our pocket to pay for that, just that portion. Okay. Now that $4,750 could be picked up by other endorsements that we've purchased along with the mortality policy. So attached to my policy, I have a special major medical with no co-insurance up to a limit of $15,000 health equine policy. What that means is that I've purchased a health insurance type policy along with the mortality. It can cover up to $15,000 for certain things. That doesn't mean that your vaccinations and all your normal workup, your normal not sick, not injured type costs are not going to be covered within that. Doesn't necessarily have to be an emergency, but this is a, hey, we're sick, we're hurt, we're something. We need, no different than how you use your health insurance, other than we don't do pre-existing, and your agent can kind of whoever your agent is, they can kind of go through that with you. But this particular one, it doesn't cover anything like that. So this endorsement on my policy has a $600 deductible. What that means for me is every time I go to use this policy, I'm going to pay $600 as a deductible. The other part of this emergency colic surgery vet bill, this example that we have here on informational slide number 2, we have emergency exam, which is usually a triage. They look your horse over and say, yep, I think we can do supportive care and treatment, or yeah, we need to prep him for surgery. So that's $250. Then we have our ultrasound, for $180. That's going to be considered diagnostics. Not all plans cover diagnostics. My plan covers diagnostics up to 50% of the $15,000 total. Next on the list is a CBC and a chem panel, so it's blood tests for $220. Catheter replacement and IV fluids is $95 plus $900 for the fluids, and then medications are $1,200. So that equals out to $2,665. Now we have a limit of up to $15,000 with a deductible of $600. We can pick up that $4,750 from the emergency fees within this policy. Okay. Now, all policies and endorsements are going to be different. This is just how my particular one works. So this is going to be a total coverage of $7,415 on the major medical no co-insurance side. I'm going to have to pay $600 of that in my $7,415. So that's kind of how that works. Now, here comes a good part. Informational slide number 3. The totality of the entirety of the vet bill for emergency colic surgery, plus what our entire policy for us costs up front. So it costs me for the mortality policy, which I have to have in order to get the health policy, is $980 a year. That's annually, okay? The special major medical is $775. That's annual premium. The deductible that I'm going to pay for this particular claim is going to be $600. So realistically, the total policy cost me out of pocket $2,355. The hardest thing is to have a horse colic and to be paralyzed with the decision making of, do I wait? Do I call my vet? And by all means, call your own vet. If you live in a small town and you use a local vet, that's fine. Call your vet, get their expertise. Don't jump on Facebook and be like, do I take it to a universe? Like, just call your vet. If you don't have a vet, get a vet. Call that vet out to come and just take a look at that horse, even if he's healthy, even if he or she is healthy. It gets a baseline. That way they know. So when you call, they're not coming into it blind, and they can help you over the phone. They can help you on a video call. Call your local universities in which, if there was an emergency, that's where your horse would be going. Maybe make an appointment there. Let them see your horse so they have a baseline. That's how you have a plan in place. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when with all animals, not just horses. Have a plan. A plan means not thinking with your checkbook. Yeah, you might have a deductible. Yeah, you might have had to pay this up front, which, by the way, we offer financing so you can make monthly payments on it. So you can get all of the endorsements that you want and you think you're going to need with this animal. So you can make the right decisions. And you can say, hey, I know when this day comes, this is what it's going to cost me. Everyone thinks insurance is a scam, and it's really not. I'm not telling you that just to sell it to you, because I don't care if you buy it from me or from somebody else. But insurance is pennies on the dollar for what you're going to pay for something like this out of pocket. And think of it this way. I know people who don't have their horses insured. They don't have a mortality policy on their horses. So when they go and they incur one of these $15,000 bills and their horse doesn't make it, now they have not only lost their horse, but now they have a $15,000 bill on an animal that's no longer with them, and they couldn't help them. Or maybe they couldn't afford the surgery because they didn't have the option, and so their horse had to be put down. No one wants to end an animal's life that a surgery could save just because they didn't have the money. This helps you with that. You can think it's a scam all you want, but ask people who've actually had to use it. No one likes to buy insurance. I don't like to buy insurance until I need it, and then I wish I had it. And that's kind of the moral of the story. It doesn't matter if it's home insurance, your vehicle insurance, your trailer, your horse, whatever it is, your dog. You don't want it until it's time to have it and you need it. The thing that I want to drive home with this is you'd better have a plan, and you better be able to not think with your checkbook, because we have enough money to buy these animals. We have enough money to feed these animals, and we damn sure better make sure that we have enough money or a plan in place to be able to offer them the health care and the advanced technology that they need to stay comfortable and for their life to be as good as we can make it. If you have insurance and you want to make sure that your plan has good coverage, or you don't understand it, maybe your insurance agent isn't a horse person, which that happens a lot, and that's okay. I would love to help you understand it, not trying to take their away from them or their business. I'm just here to educate and to hopefully help people understand there are options out there for these expensive luxuries, because horses are luxuries, let's be honest, but we all want them. We love them. Doesn't matter if they're backyard grass eaters and pasture ornaments. It's just the fact that there are options. To be prepared, think ahead. And if you don't have a policy and you say, hey, I don't know what this costs, I think it's really expensive, would change my mind. Let's see what the actual costs are. You don't have to buy it. I want you to be covered. I want you to not have to make decisions with your checkbook. And decision fatigue and decision paralysis, it is real in an emergency situation. Trust me, I've been there. I see so many people who don't have a plan. So reach out. I'd love to help. I don't care if you buy. I just want to educate that insurance can help you. 9 times out of 10, when people have it and they think it's silly and it's expensive, when they use it, they're like, oh man, I'm really glad I had that. Especially buying from an agent who's in the industry, who knows horses, who know insurance companies, who know how all of that inside stuff works. It's a lot better of dealing with someone like that than someone who's selling a ton of farms and a ton of autos and maybe other kinds of insurances, and you're never going to be number one on their list, especially when that day comes and you call and you say, hey, because the first thing you're going to want to do is call your vet. The second thing you want to do when you get there is you're going to want to call your insurance agent and give them a heads up of, hey, we're taking, Flicka to the university. We're pretty sure she's going to have colic surgery. You want to keep that insurance company, insurance agent in the know. Now, there's a quick phone number you can call or you can text, and when you get a chance, your agent can call you or you can call your agent, talk on the phone, just give them a heads up. That's all they ask for is you give them a heads up.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to know more, please reach out to saddlestocklegacy.com. We'd love to hear from you. And as always, don't forget to call for your cow.